Thanks to all of the participants. We have well over 100 folks that are listening in right now, and we need any and all of your help to support this effort as we look at the many opportunities and challenges we face in manufacturing, locally, regionally, and nationally, as we aspire to grow this sector globally. We feel the work that we do in building our smart manufacturing cluster is really going to be pivotal and has potential to create a sustainable competitive advantage in Northeast Ohio and Ohio. As we know, building a robust and resilient talent pipeline is a critical component for our smart manufacturing cluster. And today we've got a great panel in additive manufacturing for you today. Since we only have 20 minutes or so, we've decided to have them focus on the gaps that they see, share some of the actions that they're working on collaboratively, and along with providing any thoughts that they might have that we should be considering for the future. We've got a great panel. I'm going to introduce them for you in the spirit of time. First, we have Bob Pelletier, who's recently retired and currently on the Additive Manufacturing Cluster of Ohio steering team with myself. He's formerly with Parker Hannifin and their engineering head, where he set up and managed Parker Hannifin's Additive Manufacturing Center, developing metals and polymer additive manufacturing methods, as well as AI and robotic efforts. Then we have Stephanie Gaffney, who's the Director of Additive Manufacturing Programs at the Youngstown Business Institute. She works closely with Youngstown State University, as well as America Makes, and facilitates small business and talent searches and training, along with a lot of other things that she does there, by the way. And then last but not least, we have Alethea Ganaway. She's a program manager at Tri-C, and she's Director of Additive Manufacturing and Ideation. So what we're going to do is the batting order will be Bob, Stephanie, and Alethea. So I'll turn it over to them and go right ahead. And and I wanted to thank the panel also for participating. These folks are very busy, as you can imagine, and we really appreciate the time. Bob, over to you.
Thanks, Paul. If I had to consider gaps in talent for additive manufacturing, additive manufacturing is still fairly new, and even though we've come a long way in the last 10, 15 years, gaps still do exist. And if I had to start with a key one, it's a gap with the understanding in business leadership. Sometimes additive manufacturing can be a big capital investment, and those decision makers will often ask, what is the return on investment? What is the date for that? Why should I do this? And because it's so new, they need a little bit of education and information on the benefits of additive manufacturing, because it's those folks where the commitment comes from, and sustaining commitment is needed from such leadership. After that, the gaps, I think I would go next to engineering. And I think there's two types of engineer: the seasoned engineer that's been in the industry a while. What we have found is that those engineers, if they don't understand additive manufacturing very well, they will send us a part and ask us to make it as if it were done conventionally, without taking advantage of the benefits of additive. And then the second type of engineer is the new one, the fresh grad. And the fresh grad engineer seems to have no trouble thinking in 3 dimensions. But they at the university level could use some hands-on training with actual equipment and maybe some classroom time. But we at Parker had to basically do homegrown engineers to oversee the equipment because there's so few folks with additive experience. And then lastly, technicians, I'm finding that is the smallest gap, because in Northeast Ohio, we have very good programs for training technicians. And I am a recipient of 2 of Alethea's former students, and they have done very well. So our technicians, that gap has closed very well. So that's what I kind of see as the gaps in talent.
And I remember, so why don't we, and I'll come back to you in a bit. So why don't we go to Stephanie and maybe have her give some summary comments?
I agree, with Bob there as far as, additive manufacturing needs to be kind of developed internally. It needs to come from the CEO level, the C level, all the way down to the adoption of the people that's on the shop floor. And just because something should, can be produced additively doesn't necessarily mean that it should. So we at YBI actually start with the very basics, with an AM 101, the whys, the 7 types, the processes, why something should be done additively versus traditionally manufactured. So we really like to, educate our manufacturers with that tidbit of information, before we dive right in. So that's something that we definitely focus on. And the additive is a buzzword. It is fairly new, and people that, oh, I'll just print this. Oh, I'll just print this. Sometimes it just doesn't make sense. So making sure that these manufacturers, all the way from the C-level suite to the people on the shop floor, understand the hows and the whys of using additive is definitely a gap that I see. They just want to dive right into the deep end, and that's one thing. All of us that are involved in additive, we don't want these companies to say, oh, hey, yeah, I tried this, didn't work out well, got a bad taste in my mouth, spent a lot of money, I'm never going back to it. So we really want companies to go back to the basics first. We are additive manufacturing agnostic. We look at all different processes and types to see what the best fit is for that manufacturer.
Thanks, Stephanie. Alethea?
So I'm going to approach it just a little bit different and look at it from an educational perspective, where I see gaps are. First, additive, you have 2 words, additive manufacturing. We all know that manufacturing is not something that younger kids are like, that's what I want to do when I grow up. They're not running towards it. So as sometimes I'll meet students, they're like, I want to go into 3D printing. It's called additive manufacturing. Wait, what? So we have that piece of it. Sometimes just the name itself is a turnoff to the younger generation. So the second piece of it that I also look at is being able to fill those positions with qualified individuals who actually want to go to school, because either they're going to get trained in an educational setting, whether it's a 2-year, a 4-year, or the company is going to train them. They're not going to just walk in off the street and automatically know how to run these machines or how to create a 3D model. Then the other piece of it is the training that they receive at their school. And I thank Bob for just giving us accolades on how great our technicians are. But we realistically, we have some of our students may have a certain learning curve for some companies, because we only do 4 out of the 3 types of additive manufacturing. So our students can't learn everything. They're not going to learn on a metal printer. We don't own one, and it will probably be a while before we actually are able to buy one, or we don't even have the space for it right now. So that's another thing that I look at. Then the next problem with additive manufacturing is actually embracing the technologies at companies. I see a lot of companies, sometimes I'll get students who are already working for a company, and maybe they just want to retool their skills, enhance what they already know, and their company will be training them. And sometimes I'll visit people at companies and I'll be like, okay, what are you working on? And they have a small desktop printer that their company is trying to get them to make these industrial parts. And I'm like, that's just not going to work. So I think embracing the technology, and also for those who are a little older, wanting to embrace it, wanting to learn a new trick, wanting to learn, like, I don't know it all. I have people call me with masters. Well, I'm already an engineer. I've been doing this for 30 years. My company is getting a 3D printer. So I'm going to skip 7 out of the courses you have and go to the end, and I should be good. Okay, can you tell me the 7 families of additive? So I think that's another thing, that we have gaps in different areas, and depending upon the person or the situation. I don't think there's like a fix for all, but I definitely think educating and having people understand what additive is and how they can use it, and the difference between a desktop and an industrial printer is definitely needed by many.
Thanks, Alethea. And I think we've seen that a lot, where a lot of companies will make an investment, but then they really haven't thought about designing for a manufacturer 3D printing. So that opens up generally some areas for disappointment, and probably a cautionary tale for people think, well, if I buy a machine, then I'll be in it, right? There's a lot
Right.
to do it.
Right.
Let me go back to Bob a little bit, because I think your experience with a large manufacturing company who really dove in and are seeing the benefits of putting in the additive manufacturing system. When we were talking about this earlier, I think you had some great insights as to how Parker did this and kind of the outcomes that you've had for that, but also some of the challenges around talent.
When we first set up shop, we posted the job openings for engineers, and after about 6 to 7 months, I had looked at every single resume that came through, and I charted it out of 100, and it was like 153 resumes I looked at. There were folks that didn't even come close to what we were looking for, and it was evidence that this is fairly new, and there's not that many such folks out there. So when we first installed our EOS metal machine, I went to the Rapid conference, and the nice folks at EOS walked me around to several booths, telling folks I was looking for an engineer, and they all, without exception, laughed. And it was a case where if they knew someone, they wouldn't tell me; they'd hire it themselves. So all of these, the alternative that I found was that all of these folks did homegrown. So we started looking internally, and that's what we ended up doing. And as a follow-on to the folks we hired, we also set up a manufacturing engineering leadership development 2-year program, and where they spend their time at 4 locations, and one of them being ours, for 6 months. And they get to touch equipment, they get to design parts for additive, and that has worked out very well.
Oh, thanks, Bob. And I think one of the things that you bring up there and is, I think this will probably resonate for Stephanie and Alethea a little bit too, is that as you built that program, you kind of grew your own, which is good news, because there's a lot of excellent engineering talent here to grow, particularly in the additive space. But I think the other area is that then you started to build a career ladder or career progression capability as well, so that it helped you develop and identify your next generation of leadership, which I think a lot of companies tend to look at an additive expert as an additive expert, but you have to be sensitive to what their aspirations are from a career and professional development standpoint as well. So always good to hear you, and companies like Parker kind of nurturing that.
And if a company doesn't have the equipment, which is vital for learning, our local area universities have a variety of equipment, and a partnership could be done with your company and the local education institution.
Well said, and I think I look at both Stephanie and Alethea and can see that you've got tremendous resources right now to tap. There are many others, Magnet, and I work with a lot of other universities in the region, and there's tremendous capabilities here in terms of people as well as equipment. One of the things that Stephanie talked about as we were kind of preparing for this session, you talked about the fact that in your collaboration with YSU around the senior capstone projects. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
So we have seen that the workforce education, the student engagement has become a larger priority on projects that we've been on, and there's some funding surrounding that. The state of Ohio puts out an Ohio Federal Research Grant that assists small businesses and universities, and one of the requirements is an SEE, a student engagement experience, where they require you to put the students on the grant And all of the students that have worked on these 2-year projects have gotten hired on, within the companies they've worked with. A perfect example is Safran Braking Systems over in Twinsburg. They've hired a lot of recent grads through grants who've gotten, experience at the collegiate level as well as, on site. So that is one example. A lot of universities, one that we work with quite heavily is Youngstown State University. And they have a program, it's generally in your senior year, and it's called a senior capstone program. And they're always looking to engage with manufacturers to find a manufacturing problem, whether it's research-based, additive, whether it's something in thermodynamics, any of the advanced, types of manufacturing. And it's essentially free labor for that company. They will engage with the university, put together a 1 to 2 white paper about what the problem that they're trying to solve, what the issue is, and they will get out assigned a student team of 4 students to work on this throughout the year prior to graduation. So it's a really good way for the companies to mentor those students in the last year of college, get them up to speed with their facilities and systems. They're allowed to be on site. So again, a very valuable, to help mentor and mold, future employees coming up through the universities. So we definitely encourage you to reach out to your local university, see if they have any programs like that. And, that could definitely help your talent search, coming out of those universities.
Thanks, Stephanie. Alethea, I'll turn it to you. I'm sure that you probably have a lot of complementary input that you'd like to add to what we've heard already.
One thing I would say to helping close the skills gap and would be companies and educational institutions working together. That's really key, especially when it comes to new additive manufacturing technologies. And I will second Stephanie to companies working. We also have a capstone class where we've worked with companies and the VA, and our students been able to work on real world projects. That's so much better so that they can see what they would do when they actually go out into the workforce. So I think having companies work with universities and colleges to just say, this is what we're looking for, especially this technology changes very rapidly. So it's always good when we have input from those who do it every day.
And I think we have a great example out of Youngstown State University, a company called the X1 Company who specializes in binder jet printing for both sand and metals, approached the university. The depowdering process in their metal system was so labor intensive to harvest the parts out of the build box. And they engaged with the university with a 4-student team. The 4-student team did such an amazing job on a depowdering system that they ended up patenting the process, adding the students onto that, and are able to add that as a viable product, as an add-on to that piece of equipment now. So there's been some really great success stories and about that. So again, I can't say enough about those capstone projects and giving those students some real world experience and truly molding them.
That's terrific. I think I'm looking at our time and, kind of akin to our additive manufacturing family, we've done only a few layers of the build. So I would thank our speakers. They did a great job in a very short period of time. I would encourage you, and I would thank all of you that are listening to us right now for your attention and affording us some of your time today. I would say that if in the smart manufacturing world, if additive manufacturing is something that you're into, want to get into, want to expand in, you've got certainly a lot of resources in our smart manufacturing cluster and in our additive manufacturing effort that goes along with that. And please reach out to us if you'd like to contribute and help. As you heard from all three, we can't do this in a vacuum. We need companies to step up, partner with us, and if we really want to make Northeast Ohio and Ohio kind of the sweet spot for manufacturing globally as it relates to smart manufacturing, we need help with companies like you to help us do that. So thank you for your time. Thanks to our panel for their time. And I'm going to hand it off to Jay Ferran. So thank you.
Thank you to all of our panelists. We appreciate the valuable perspective and insights you brought to the very important talent development discussion. We all know talent is a critical element to the future success of additive manufacturing in our region. And thank you too to each of the presenters for your contribution to today's roadmap launch. Quickly, a few final comments. To get an electronic copy of the roadmap, please visit our website, smartmanufacturingcluster.org. We believe additive manufacturing is a transformative technology that can have a profound impact in the development of new products and processes, helping to make our manufacturers and manufacturing community even more competitive in the global marketplace. I encourage you to take a deeper dive into the roadmap and consider getting involved in any one or more of the initiatives identified as we take steps to operationalize the roadmap. To that end, we are establishing an additive manufacturing working group to formalize the effort. Also going forward, we are folding the existing AM cluster in under our smart manufacturing cluster to ensure the linkages to talent, transformation, innovation, and leadership that comprise the 4 pillars in the manufacturing blueprint. The Smart Manufacturing Cluster will not only address the additive manufacturing opportunity, but also the other key growth initiatives encompassed in smart manufacturing, such as industrial IoT, data-driven manufacturing, robotics and automation, just to name a few. Again, to learn more about additive manufacturing and any of the smart manufacturing elements, please visit smartmanufacturingcluster.org. Thank you again for your time today. We know you had many choices of where to spend your valuable time, and we appreciate that you have spent some of it with us. Thank you and have a great day.